If you've ever wanted to explore 3D, but you're a little bit uncomfortable with tools like Maya or 3D Studio Max, I've got some good news. Photoshop has some very rudimentary 3D tools that can really help you out when you're working on your digital illustrations. So in this example, you can see here, I've created a shape that was turned into a 3D object within Photoshop, and I used that to go ahead and create this illustration of a building. So how do we do that? Let's look at it together. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a brand new layer, and we're going to go to our shape tools, and I'm going to choose rectangle. And for this, I want to make sure that I turn off the stroke. You want to have a fill color present, something that's not white. So in this case, I'm using red because you want to be able to see it against the background. And I'm just going to go ahead and draw this rectangular shape. And just to keep things a little bit more interesting, I'll put a smaller shape right above it. Now, with 3D in Photoshop, it's not really meant to be a 3D tool, so you can't model something that's super realistic or super detailed. But if you're dealing with very basic primitives, for example, if you're working with buildings or simple homes and things of that nature, Photoshop can, I think, serve your needs pretty well. So I've created a compound shape here. Let's go ahead and now shift select both of those layers that I've just created and hit Command E. That merges those two layers together. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make a visit up to the 3D menu, and we're going to choose New 3D Extrusion from Selected Layer. When we do that, depending upon your machine, you will probably have to wait a couple of seconds or a little bit longer, but you have the ability now to realize this object, this shape, as a 3D object. And I can rotate this 3D object anywhere I wish. I can, orbit the camera. I have a few 3D controls that are up here for positioning and orienting the 3D object. So in this particular case, I'm just going to go ahead and rotate it like this. You can also zoom in and zoom out. You can kind of move it further away. You can move it close up. They're not super great controls, but they're okay for what they do. So once you have something that you're happy with, and I'll just go ahead and maybe rotate it to where it's more of a worm's eye view, I'm going to then commit my changes. So by default, when you're working with the 3D objects in a scene, you will see the 3D panel show up. And I'm not really too concerned about that, so I'm going to close that tab group. And what I'll do now is I'll right-click on the layer that has my 3D, and I'm going to choose Rasterize 3D. And what that does is it takes away the editability of that 3D model. In other words, it's baked in, it's fixed. But what I want to do now is I want to just move this down and drop the opacity. And then what I can do is I can either use a ruler or I can kind of freehand it. And I'm just going to go ahead and create my structure. Or you can use tools like Head Stylus, which I have up here, that helps me get nice and straight lines. And so now I've got this structure set up. And then once you're done, you can always toggle off the visibility. So the bonus tip here is, well, what if I wanted to add things like windows or other elements in here, because the 3D modeling capabilities will not let you add windows in it. You have to somehow draw those in. And what I like to do is I like to just go ahead and create the windows just as normal. I'll create one window, and what I'll do is I'll make copies of this window. So I'll hit Command J. Now the window is on its own separate layer, and I'll just go ahead and maybe extend this out. And I've got a shorter, faster way of doing this, and I'll put a link to that on the description for this video, and that involves making an action, which is, I think, something that is a huge time saver, so definitely check that out. But in this particular case, I'm making about 7 windows. I'm going to duplicate what I have, and I'll just duplicate it twice to give 3 rows. I'll merge those rows together by shift selecting them and hitting Command E. And then what I would like to do is I'd like to use the perspective tool. So if I right click and choose perspective, what I want to do is I want to orient the corners to kind of match that perspective. And it might be a little bit tricky. You can see that the perspective tool may not be a great choice here because this thing is at a different angle, so I need a different strategy. So what I'll do instead is I'll choose skew, and I'll move this corner up. And I need to actually scale this to where it's all completely within the building. I'll try skew again. And if I want, I can use distort to kind of reposition that. You might have to use a combination of various tools within the transform tool to get what you want. And then maybe I'll just move this down like so, and I'll hit enter. So now I've got a set of windows around this structure, and then you can add whatever other details you want. So between the skew, the distort, and the perspective tool, you have different ways of really saving yourself a ton of time. But the 3D modeling capabilities are something that most people should, not overlook. Now, caveat, I don't know if the 3D tools are going to eventually disappear from Photoshop. It seems like Adobe's kind of hinting at that. If you're starting to explore some of the more intricate elements of 3D within Photoshop, you'll get warnings saying that this feature may not be available. But for now, it is, so why not use it? As always, if you find value in the video, I would greatly appreciate a thumbs up. It helps the video get found by more folks, helps the algorithm out. And if you have any thoughts or wonderings or topics for future tutorials, please let me know. Drop me a comment. Did you learn something from this video? Is there something that you would like to see me do? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.